It's now 6:30. I'd like to call to order the Regional Planning Commission public hearing for Thursday, April the 7th, 2022. And as we're in the chambers here, we customarily start. I'm going to have Mr. Peterman lead us in the pledge. Thank you, Mr. Peterman. As I always say, if you have a cell phone or electronic device, please put it on vibrate or turn it off so it won't disturb the meeting as we get into it. Sarah, I'll now come to you for the roll call and determination of quorum.
Mr. Peterman?
Here.
Mrs. Karcher?
Here.
Mr. Servon?
Mr. Servant, you can press star
Here.
to unmute.
Thank you. Mr. Galvery?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Mr. Mills, if you press star 6, you can unmute your line.
Am I unmuted?
Okay, was that you, Mr. Mills?
Mr. Servon's asking, am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
Mr. Mills?
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Jester?
I am here.
So you have 7 present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Before you have the agenda, if you have any additions or corrections, I would accept them, but if not, I need a motion to approve and second.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Servon?
Yes.
Mr. Galvery?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of approving tonight's agenda.
Thank you once again, and I'm going to come right back to you for the introduction and public hearing instructions.
Thank you. This public hearing is being conducted for the purpose of giving the citizens of the county the opportunity to present testimony on the applications before the Regional Planning Commission. Everyone will have a chance to speak. All statements are to be made from the podium at the front of the room. At the appropriate time, instructions for how to testify via WebEx will be given. All testimony given shall be sworn or affirmed. For the record, please give your name and address. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification and inclusion in the record. The record will remain open for 2 business days following tonight's hearing. For each application before the commission, the chairman will introduce the application. Then the applicant or representative will be given 15 minutes to present the application. Following that, those in favor of the application will be allotted 5 minutes each to speak. Then those opposed to the application will be allotted 5 minutes each to speak. When everyone has had an opportunity to give testimony, the hearing on the application will be closed. No decision will be made by the commission tonight. The commission will hold a public business meeting next Thursday, April 14th, at 6:30 p.m., at which time it will make a decision on the applications heard tonight. All information of record will be considered. and a common vote of 4 members of the commission is required to make a decision. Anyone may attend the business meeting, but no new testimony will be received. The public notice of this hearing was published on March 11, 2022 in the Delaware State News, and the levy court will hear these applications on Tuesday, April 26, 2022 at 7 p.m., unless tabled by the commission or withdrawn prior to the levy court hearing. The levy court also meets in this room. Mr. Chairman.
I thank you again. We'll now get into our public hearing. The first application number we have is CS-22-02. Application title is Calpine's Kent County Solar Energy Center. Applicant owner is Calpine Mid-Atlantic Development, LLC, care of William Ferguson, 82 Christie Drive, Suite 302, Chadsford, PA, 19317. The engineer is Becker Morgan Group, Incorporated, care of Jonathan N.H. Street, P.E., 309 South Governors Avenue, Dover, Delaware, 19904. Zoning district is AR, Agricultural Residential, and AC, Agricultural Conservation. Comprehensive plan map designation is low density residential. Relation to the growth zone is outside. Present use is agriculture. Proposed use is solar facility / public utility. Solar array field. This project consists of the construction of a fenced solar array with 55,680 modules on 2 parcels totaling 246.96 plus or minus acres. Water is well. Wastewater is septic. Levy Court District is the 3rd, Mr. Angel. School District is Capital. Fire District is Dover, Station 46. Area and location, 246.96 plus or minus acres on the southwest corner of the intersection of White Oak Road, County Road 66, and Bayside Drive, County Road 17, northeast of the city of Dover. Is there someone here to represent this project? Please come to the mic and give your name and be sworn or affirmed.
Good evening. Mike Ryman, Becker Morgan Group, 309 South Governors Avenue, Dover, Delaware.
Mr. Ryman, do you swear or affirm, sir, to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And could you bring up the... Good evening, commissioners. It's glad to be here this evening. Again, my name's Mike Ryman. I have with me Jonathan Street, who's the project manager for the project with Becker Morgan Group, as well as Krish Raju from Calpine Energy, and a number of his associates. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible tonight. I know that there has been a lot of discussion about solar over the last 5 months, and it's not our intent to relive all of those discussions, so I will try to be as brief as possible. I do want to commend the commission and the county for adopting the solar ordinance. I know a lot of work went into that, a lot of discussion and thought, and we do commend the county for that, and which sets a clear set of rules for solar. Our presentation will demonstrate that this project is largely within the spirit of that new ordinance, even though that this application was filed and actually precedes the ordinance. So we'll talk through that this evening. Hopefully I did that right. So a little bit about the project area. The project is, as was stated, about 248 acres. You can see it there shown with the star in the middle of the screen, kind of shaded in green. It is located adjacent to White Oak Road and Route 9. It is west of Route 9, east of Route 1. It is adjacent to the City of Dover corporate limits, which are shown on this screen outlined in red. It is adjacent to the Garrison Oak Technical Park, which consists of a solar facility, a gas generating power facility, as well as a manufacturing facility. And then you can see to the bottom of the screen, there is a Pioneer Materials quarry facility located there. The site, as was stated, it is split zoned with the majority of the project in the AR zoning district, but there is a portion of the site in this corner that is AC, about 48 of the 248 acres. I don't know which button advances this one here? It's not really working. Or is it the bottom one? Need some tech support. Okay, a little bit about Calpine, the developer of this project. Calpine has been in Delaware since 2010. They're Delaware's largest power producer. They own and operate approximately 2,000 megawatts of power generation in Delaware. They do have about 72 full-time employees in Delaware. They acquired this particular piece of property in 2013 with the intent of developing this property as a solar project. They began that process in about 2018. So it's been around quite some time, and this has been in process for quite some time. Next slide. A little bit of specifics about the project. This just kind of blows it up there. You can see the outline in yellow is the total project site of about 248 acres. As was stated, about 80% of the project is in the AR zoning district. This project does have some woods located on it back here. And some wetlands. We maintain all of the woods and all of the wetlands as part of this application. This project will meet or exceed all of the setbacks and buffers that are outlined in the new solar ordinance that was recently adopted. Those include roughly 100 to 150 foot road buffers along White Oak Road and Route 9, 75 foot side buffers, 100 foot from any dwelling. We actually exceed that. It's roughly 150. 100 foot from any wetland, 100 foot from any blue line stream. There's a tax ditch that runs here, which has, not a tax ditch, a blue line ditch here that has 100 foot on each side of it. So this project will meet or exceed all of those provisions in the new ordinance that was adopted. Next slide. So the conditional use standard is what we are here to demonstrate that we meet as outlined in Article 21 of your code. There are 4 major criteria, of which they include the location, that the location is appropriate, not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, that the public health and safety will not be adversely impacted, that there's adequate off-street parking, and that there are necessary safeguards to protect surrounding property. Next slide. Thank you. As it relates to the appropriate location and character of the area, we do believe it is consistent. As was stated before, it is directly adjacent to the city of Dover, directly adjacent to industrial zone property within the city of Dover, noted as Garrison Technical Park, which consists of a gas-powered plant, some manufacturing, a solar array, and directly to our south, you can see the concrete quarry material site. So we do believe that it is consistent with the area, and we do believe it is consistent with the comprehensive plan designated as low-density residential, which AC and AR zoning are consistent. Next slide. So that checks that first one. And then as it relates to public health and safety will not be adversely impacted. Solar farms produce minimal disturbance. They do provide a source of renewable energy, which is a benefit. We will include, and it was recommended in the staff report, the soils testing that was outlined in the new ordinance. We are okay with that condition and expect that to be a condition of this approval. So that will be taken care of. And there's no impervious proposed in the development. There was location of a Tier 2 wellhead protection area from the city of Dover, but the city of Dover responded through the DAC essentially process that they had no objection. So we meet that. As it relates to adequate off-street parking, this is not a project that generates a lot of parking, so we will not have an issue there. There will be a few trips per month for maintenance and those kinds of things. And then necessary safeguards to protect surrounding property. As was stated, we're voluntarily including all of the buffer requirements as outlined in the new ordinance, and the buffering of the panels will be maintained in an effort to protect the surrounding properties. You gotta check, just hit through the check marks. Hit the next slide a couple times. There you go. Next slide. Keep going. Just going through the new code. These are the requirements of the new code as it relates to buffers. We're checking off all those. I mentioned that a few times already. As it relates to landscaping, we will actually exceed the new code, which is 2 staggered rows of trees. This will have 4. That is largely because the base tree planting requirement on this particular property results in 1,365 new trees. Because we have some portions of the property that are already wooded, we're deciding to put those trees into the buffer, obviously, so it does increase from 2 rows to 4 as a result of that, which is clearly a benefit. The soil study will be provided. The decommissioning plan, again, as outlined in the new ordinance, will be provided, and the bonding as well. Next slide. This just shows the landscaping and a blow up of the buffer there, and you can kind of see what I was talking about before. You have kind of this portion of the property here that already has, a lot of vegetation. So we don't need the buffer there. So we're moving the trees into the buffer around here. And that allowed us to increase the number of trees, the number of rows of trees, which is a good thing. Next slide. There were some comments in the staff report about the proximity to airports. There's a couple. There's the Shondell Airport here, and then obviously Dover Air Force Base to kind of our south. There is a process to address those through DelDOT and the FAA, and we will address those permitting requirements as part of a condition of our approval and final approval of the project. There have not been any objections to date. Next slide. So in summary, this is a project that doesn't generate traffic, no impact to services, no impact to water, no impact to schools, no impact to sewer. The neighbors are pretty quiet there. They'll be quiet neighbors, I should say. The project is compliant with the conditional use standards as outlined in Chapter 205, consistent with the comprehensive plan. This is a local energy producer that's been in Delaware for a number of years and has successfully developed power generation facilities in Delaware. And we are voluntarily complying with the spirit of the recently adopted ordinance, although this project, again, preceded that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Raju, who will close with a couple words.
Mr. Raymond, I'd like to ask you one question before you leave the mic.
Absolutely.
I should have asked you on the other projects, but knowing that White Oak Road is a highly used road and there's probably improvement possibilities, does DelDOT require you to dedicate any additional right-of-way in front of there? I saw on one of the prints here that it's 22 and a half feet off the center line to a right-of-way. And I was wondering if that was particular, any reason, or do they require it or not?
No, not on the solar projects. They have taken the position recently that on the solar there would be no right-of-way dedication needed. Then
So
because these generate such little traffic.
So if they do build a road or expand a road, which is a good possibility, we know how highly that road is used entering the city of Dover. So there could be some of that at some time in the 30-year contract.
It's possible. The good news is we do have 100 to 150 feet off the road before you get to a solar panel. So
Before you leave the mic, I'd like to ask if any commissioners,
Sure.
Any commissioners here or on the phone have any questions for the engineer? Mr. Kirby?
No, I don't.
The question was, you're indicating that you're a local energy producer, and I'm curious as to how much of the energy will actually be locally consumed.
yeah, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Raju.
Well, I don't know if there's another commissioner on the phone or not. Is anybody else on the phone? Mark has a question for the engineer.
No.
Okay, thank you, sir. If we
I'm
do,
not
we'll
going
get-
anywhere. I'll be right here for any more questions. So.
I'm afraid you'd say that, so that's no problem. So, okay, sir, I need your name
Chris Raju, Calpine.
and your address, and be sworn or affirmed.
6 Hillman Drive, Chatsford, Pennsylvania.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And please keep the mic up to your mouth as good as you can. I know it's not as great as it can be.
All right. So Calpine has been, we serve communities across the country. We've been in Delaware since 2010. I worked for Connective Energy previous to this. And we've developed projects. We've been in the communities for a very long time. And we work with local co-ops, local municipalities to sell power, capacity, energy, and through a portfolio of assets. Some of our assets are in Newcastle County, some we've developed here, and we've worked with the city of Dover, some of the co-ops locally that we sell our energy capacity to, and as part of our portfolio, we do sell some of this. We also have a retail business that sells to local retail outfits, and we use some of the green attributes from this project, our intent is to sell to the local retail entities.
And I see we got a letter from a Mr. Lee Brown, who's been tilling the property for the time till you actually developed it. And he had nothing but good things to say about you and your company.
And it was a relationship we had from day one with him. And I don't know if he's here today, but he's been very, and we've been fair to him. He was very fair to us in development, the way he worked with us. So, thank you.
I just thought that ought to be in the record.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for this gentleman here on commissioners or on the phone?
Yep. Just lastly, I just want to close on the last slide of our presentation, and then
It's Mr. Reeman back at the mic. I just want to make sure when they transpose the
sorry.
minutes.
if you could just go to the last slide. So we did get the staff report, and we appreciate the positive recommendation of approval from the staff. We agree with all of the recommendations in the report. We have no problem implementing those as conditions of approval of this project. So with that, sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. Was your answer okay, Mr. Garvey? Okay, very good. Is there anyone else here that's in favor of this project would like to come to the microphone? Third and final call. Anyone else here in favor of this project would like to come to the microphone? We'll now go to the against side. Is there anybody here that's, on the phone? I keep forgetting about the phone. I apologize. Anybody on the phone would like to speak for the project?
If there's anyone that would like to speak in favor of this project, please press your raised hand icon, and we can bring you into the meeting. I see no hands raised in favor.
Okay, then. We will now go to the against side. Is there anyone here would like to come to the microphone and speak against this particular project? Please come to the microphone, give us your name and address, and be sworn in, please.
Yes, my name is John Nichols, live at 970 Winnow Drive, Clayton, Delaware.
Mr. Nichols, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
So help me God.
Thank you.
With respect to the AR zoning classification, just to refresh everyone's memory, to provide for a wide range of agricultural use and farm-related services while providing for low-density residential development in areas that are rural in character and where farming may not be the optimum land use activity. I won't read the rest of it. Suffice it to say, this is not an agricultural project. This is an industrial project in an agricultural zone. Part of it's AC, part of it's AR. The only place an industrial power plant should be sited is in an industrial zone. This is not an industrial zone. Also, does it qualify as a conditional use? Of course not. It's not a public utility. It's an industrial power plant that sells electricity directly to the grid. It should not be granted a permit because of that. If you're going to rezone property for industrial use, then go ahead and take the necessary process to proceed with the rezoning. The last point I want to note, the solar purveyors have been saying that there's that we have not provided, that is to say, opponents of their projects, any information that groundwater contamination has occurred. Well, that's because no studies that I'm yet aware of, although I'm searching for one as we speak, that may indicate there is such pollution, but I don't yet have proof of it. What I do have, however, is a report from the PFAS Project Lab from Northwestern University. With no objection, I'd like to make it a part of the public record.
You can turn it over to our administrator, and she can get us copies of it.
Again, that's from the PFAS Project Lab, Northeastern University. Ongoing studies are being done at North Carolina State University as we speak. I wasn't able to gather those results for the meeting this evening. I apologize. But that particular study indicates that, and I'm sorry from memory, I can't recall exactly, over 30 instances of PFA being used in and PFAs, which are also known as forever chemicals, being used in and on solar panels. The proper course of action to proceed aside from the objections I raised earlier, the proper course of action proceeding further would be to look at the Dover solar arrays. They've been there for about a decade. They've been subjected to all kinds of environmental issues. What we should be doing is digging holes. We should be sampling the groundwater. We should be determining whether or not any of the PFAs that the EPA has confirmed, I might add, the EPA has confirmed that PFAs are used on and in over 30 cases as provided in that information. We should be looking to see if any of them have in fact leached into the groundwater, if any soil contamination has occurred, especially in an area as sensitive as this, adjacent to wetlands and also other residents. The last point I'll make, the state of Delaware has set up a task force. The purpose of that task force is to look for the existence of PFAs. They're going to look for them in the parts per trillion. They've been linked to all sorts of damage to human organs, chief among them liver. That working group was recently involved with oversight of $53 million that was received by the state of Delaware Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control because of known PFA contaminations. The $53 million was settlement from the DuPont company. So this working group is ongoing. Studies are being done as we speak regarding these industrial power plants. I'd urge caution, and I respectfully request that you reject their application, and I'd also move that we include Delaware's working group and the information from the same source, if I might.
I thank you, sir.
Pardon me?
I said I thank you.
Thank you,
for
sir.
your presentation.
Any questions
Does
you have, I'd be happy to answer.
Anybody here on the commission have any questions? Or
I don't have a question. I mean,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I have a hearing impairment.
I understand what you said, but I wonder if the gentleman from Calpine, I missed your last name, I'm sorry. I believe that what he is discussing is probably the older solar units. Can you clarify for us about the PFAs?
I don't mean to be rude, but I was under the impression
that
you're okay, sir. She's asking somebody else, and I think they're coming to the mic as you.
I'm trying to learn every time that it comes in front of us, but I recall that being.
Thank you, sir. We're going to let the lady come to the mic.
Okay.
I'd like to provide this information as well, please. Thank you.
Ma'am, come to the mic, and you're going to clarify on PFAs only at this time. If you wouldn't give us your name, address, and be sworn or affirmed.
Yeah. Christina Martins with ECT. My address is 4860 Loomis Road, Unionville, Michigan.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So yeah, as far as the PFAS goes and a lot of the stuff that you find, solar panel technology is improving just like everything else is, so along with the recycling of it. So yes, PFAS is being used less and less. It would be based off of the specific panel model that they choose for the project, but as we go, newer panels are using less and less PFAS. It's really just a coating for non-sticking is what it is, and since they're glass, they don't need to have a non-stick coating over them for sun collection. So newer models, newer panels, as technology improves, there's less and less of that, especially now that it's a hot topic. So
I will ask if Mrs. Carter, does that answer your question?
So you're saying that the solar farms that are being produced by this company, there's no PFA consideration as far as a source of contamination?
I don't know if I could say all solar projects that have been developed. Future panels, manufacturers, they're not being used. So, if you were to have a panel installation today, you'd have to look at that manufacturer. A panel installation a year or two from now is gonna, every year there's less and less of it being developed. So something that was installed 10 years ago is going to be different than something installed today, which is going to be different than 2 years from now. So, but that manufacturer and that panel, once chosen, will have a data sheet associated with it. And if that's, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, along with the testing that we're requiring now, I would think that would certainly take care of the fact of what you're talking about anyway, and the engineering group has decided to do.
I have seen many communities now requiring solar up front. I will admit you guys are the first ones I've seen requiring it throughout, so that's a good way to track it. It'll be a good research.
Thank you. Nice to be
but-
patted on the back instead of stabbed in the back sometimes. I tell you,
Yeah.
it just gets that way.
Yeah, no, it's really the first one I've seen where you're doing it throughout, so it'll be nice. Most are beginning and end, but so you're,
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak against this particular project? Against this project? Come up to the mic, give us your name and address, and be sworn or affirmed.
Kevin Goldsboro, I reside at 668 Lighthouse Road, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Keep it closer to your face, too,
Yes, sir.
please. Thank you.
Mr. Goldsboro, do you swear or affirm, sir, to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
No. Yes. That's it. Okay, so next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so beginning with this ordinance, so I don't see where this application fits in with this ordinance of no more than 23% of each lot in AC Ag Conservation District shall be covered by man-made impervious surfaces. Most of these panel projects cover about 85% of the surface and take 100% out of agriculture. And as far as impervious, I believe the definition here for impervious is anything that gets in the way of a tractor doing tillable agriculture. There's an argument that it's has to do with rainfall, but if we go to the next slide, please. So here's a horse ranch, and so this applies to a horse ranch even where that has a 23% land use restriction and ag conservation. So there's less in the way of impervious with this than solar arrays in the field. There's no impact on rainfall on a horse ranch, and they fall within the 23% land use requirement. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so also ordinance 205-44. This is to provide for a wide range of agricultural use, which solar arrays is not, and farm-related services also not, while providing for low density. Also, there again, 85% land use taken up with solar arrays, not low density. Residential development in areas that are rural in character, which that is the character of this site. It is rural. You look at the satellite imagery, and it's there's woods, wetlands, and farm fields all around this area, and where farming may not be the optimum land use activity, which this is optimal land use activity. This area produces about 300 bushels of corn per acre, which anyone in agriculture would consider that prime agricultural land. Next slide, please. So here's a field, not very far away, but you go along Route 9, along this, you go to Dover Air Force Base, north along Route 9, you oftentimes see geese in the fields all in that area. They roost at Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge, and so I just make the argument that this is part of wetlands area where they roost and they feed in the local fields, and the farmer's grain leaves a lot of good food source for wildlife to sustain themselves off of. Next slide, please. And so this is what I'm saying. What we the people, the farmers, any nature lovers, waterfowl hunters. This is the kind of setting that we want We don't want, this whole area along Route 9 to be covered with hundreds of thousands of solar panels. So that's it. Any questions of me?
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. I'll now open it up to any commissioners on the phone or up here have any questions. Mr. Peterman?
Yes, sir.
I have a couple. Is this your farm where this tractor showing?
No, it's at that farm's along Route 9. It's about halfway between our farm and where this farm is located. It's just, this is an example
That's the area then?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's in the area.
Because I was wondering, what do you have a grader on the back and a field? But anyway.
Yeah, so that would, that just
I have
cuts.
another question for you.
Okay.
I know before, I believe you said your wife had a baby not long ago.
Yes, sir.
Right? And you was opposed because you thought that the solar panels was going to put off damage and things that could hurt your baby's health. Then there was an expert from the University of Delaware saying that they don't leak
Okay.
and things like that.
Oh,
Did that satisfy you at that time? Because I want to ask you.
no. Well, there's
you-
okay.
Are you completely against solar panels or farms, or do you just not want them in this location, or what? I really don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Especially, sir, yeah, and especially in just prime agriculture such as this, where you have hundreds of bushels of corn grain that can be produced off of this land. So I'd say especially not this location where it's so productive. As far as the pollutants from the panels, I advocate that there be soil tests to see, because everyone in these locations, we have well water. So I would appreciate soil tests for our well water. The thing I did not bring up, and additional concern for my baby's health, okay, is the transmission lines. I have a radiation tester, and I've tested near these high voltage transmission lines, and if they're too close, to a residence, there's been a lot of studies showing, brain cancer related to living in proximity to high voltage transmission lines, and I know personal stories with that too.
I understand about the transmission lines and all that. They had a lot of tests on that. I just wanted to know if you would be okay with a solar panel farm if it was somewhere else. Because it's going to be hard to have a solar farm that's going to produce the amount of electricity you have on little lots, or the amount of electricity you need on little lots. And it seems to me that it's going to eventually take more agricultural land for a solar farm because of the size of the farm. But my concern is which we're going to be better off with a farm turning into 300-400 homes and 600 cars, or a solar panel farm that has maybe a visitation 5 times a month with one vehicle. That's where I'm coming from. I just want you to know where I'm coming from when I ask that question.
Especially not wanting it in ag conservation land, which you cannot have, housing development in ag conservation land, and it's ag conservation. If it's ag conservation or ag preservation, usually it's because it's the most productive farmland. That's why it's zoned that way. So it's just saying that's the last place. I think, like, on top of like abandoned landfills, there's industrial abandoned sites in Wilmington. I think until those places are, completely developed with solar, that these should be the last places, that would be looked at.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Pierce? Thank you, sir. Thank you for your presentation. I didn't hear anybody on the phone. Am I correct, Mark?
We didn't take.
For that
those in
gentleman, have any
opposition.
questions? Yeah, was anybody there with their hand raised?
None of the
No, I
commissioners.
don't have any questions.
Okay. I still am on the against for this particular project. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak against? Please give us your name and address, and you can be sworn or affirmed.
Yes, Brandon Bunk, 9535 Bayside Drive, Dover, Delaware.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I live about a half to 3/4 of a mile north of this property. My farm is in the AC district as well as part of this proposed property. I farm both north and south of this property, and I feel that large-scale utility solar has no place in the AC district. I really feel it has no place in the state, but I definitely am strongly against seeing it in the AC district. I think it's a horrible use of productive agricultural land to turn it into solar panels. And Mr. David Peterman, I think you had asked whether we'd like to see solar panels or houses. Well, this is in the AC district, or a portion of this. So there's no chance of seeing houses. Those property rights have already been taken away from the people east of Route 1. The farm that Calpine bought was not and could not be developed into houses. And we were under the impression that there was no development that was going to be allowed. Somehow solar has snuck in under the premise that it's somehow related to agriculture. And I'm a farmer, and I have solar panels, so I'm not against solar. They're on the roof of my barn, right where they ought to be, not in the middle of my cornfield. So I'm strongly against this. I think it's a horrible use of land. I'd hope you guys could see that at some point, that we need productive farmland to stay in the state of Delaware for the jobs, for the chicken industry that relies on this land. There's a Mount Air grain feed mill maybe a mile south of this field. They bought that place to buy corn out of this area so they can feed the chickens that are produced in this state. Agriculture is still the #1 industry in the state, and the chicken industry leads that. The more farmland we rob from farming, the harder it's going to be to keep those integrators here. And when we lose those integrators, we have lost agriculture in the state of Delaware. That is a fact, and we are getting close to it. It's happening in Kent and Sussex County between housing developments and now with the solar projects that are going on. This will be the second one that's been proposed that I know of in the AC's district. It has no place here. Take it somewhere else. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. I will ask commissioners, anybody on the phone or up here have any questions, and thank you for your commentary. Thank you. Is there anyone else here against this particular project? Sir, give us your name, your address, and be sworn or affirmed.
My name is Bruce Dragem. I live at 110 Hilldale Road, Dover.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
If it please the conference, I would like to tell you that I support all you people about the agricultural...
Sir, please speak into the microphone, I ask you.
I'm in support of the agricultural use that have the concern of these people here. My second opinion is the setbacks. I live in Hilldale, the subdivision in question, top right corner there. Now, if the setbacks are accurate, I would like to see the setbacks extended from 100 feet to maybe 500 feet or 1,000 feet. Now, I was thinking, if this stuff was in your backyard, would you like to get up and look out your window and see all this stuff? Especially if you're in the country. You don't want to see industrial. That's my perspective on that. I don't want to have to look out my window and have to see these things. And that's all I'm trying to say. I'm in favor of solar. I'm in favor of all that stuff. I'm in favor of the agricultural need for this state. But setback and the comfort zone of the residents. I've been in that house over 30 years. I like to see what's out the window. I like to see the geese. I like to see the birds. I like to see the farmers. I don't want to see solar panels. And how high are they going to be? 10 feet tall? 5 feet tall? How tall are they going to be? What are we going to see?
Can I ask you, sir, what lot you actually live on? I'm looking at the map.
Say again, please.
What lot do you live on Hilldale Road? Which is your lot? What number lot are you on?
18. 18 is the original number. I'm on a corner.
So your lot is actually out on Route 9, on the other side of the development, on the east side of the development?
I'm on the dogleg between Bayside Drive and Hilldale.
That's what I mean. You're on the other side of the road from where all the lots are actually adjacent to the development.
Yeah, I'm across the street. You see where Hilldale is?
Yeah, I got the map here in front of me, sir,
Okay.
with all the lots on it. That's
So,
why I had to ask.
Basically, I'm concerned about setbacks. You know, 100
Okay.
feet is cool, but I would like to see more.
I appreciate your
All right.
commentary. I'll ask anybody here at the commission
Any questions?
or on the phone. Anybody have any questions? Mark, anybody there?
I don't believe any of the commissioners have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your.
You will appreciate your time.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak against this project, against this particular project? Come to the microphone, give us your name and address, and you can be sworn or affirmed.
Paul Cartanza Jr., 1477 Cartanza Road, Dover, Delaware, 19901.
Mr. Cartanza, do you swear or affirm, sir, to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
As Brandon Bunk spoke earlier, I can't add any much more than that. What I would like to say is we farm most of the ground around this solar field that they're proposing. One thing I can say is the gentleman that farms the land will not speak up for himself. But once this farm is taken, you have a farmer out of business. That is the only piece of ground that Mr. Brown tills. He won't speak up, but I will for him. So it bothers me that there's no consideration for him. You're taking it out. He's not going to be able to rent the ground around him. He's not going to be able to pick and choose other pieces.
Sir, I don't think you can speak for somebody else at the mic because we have a letter from Mr. Brown
I know what you
that
have.
supports this. He's been farming it, and he knew when it was purchased by them, and he farmed it. He says he has no problem with it because they've been an excellent owner to
Well,
deal
then I'll
with.
speak for myself. I'm a neighbor.
You can do that.
What you're going to do is you're going to cause more competition. You're taking the land away from farming. You're going to cause more competition around it, higher land rents. We're going to be competing against each other. That's not right. You're taking a piece. What you're going to do is you're going to allow this piece here. The neighbors are going to come in. They're going to want to rent the next piece or buy the next piece from another landowner. You're taking more land out of production. You're making it harder for Brandon, myself, the Blessings, whoever. You're making it harder for us to compete with these land prices. How am I going to compete with this company when they come in $10,000, $12,000 an acre when I can only afford 4 to 5, maybe 6? You're taking that's what you're doing to the whole area by doing this. It's as plain and simple as that. You want us to farm. You have corn up on your deal up there. I mean, that's what Delaware started out here. Delaware was farming, agriculture. This land, take a beautiful look at that picture. What do you see around it? The solar panels are put where they belong. They're on the Garrison farm. We used to till that also. Obviously, we've been squeezed out of that area and pushed in further. Where do we stop? Where does it all end? I mean, it's not fair for us. You know, we're losing ground at a tremendous rate. You know, and I just want to know where do we make a stand to say, hey, we're still agriculture. We're still trying to feed the chickens. Isn't that important? That's feeding us. That's all I really got to say.
I thank you, sir. Any commissioners have any questions or anyone on the phone for this gentleman? Seeing none, I thank you again. Please come to the mic, give us your name, your address, and you can be sworn or affirmed.
Hi, Trisha Hurd Nash, 3652 Big Woods Road, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to go over everything that the other agricultural people here have done, but I would like to point out something. This county declared this an ag conservation area back in the 90s because they recognized the value and the importance of the area being preserved for agricultural conservation. Calpine or Garrison Energy purchased that land knowing it was in an agricultural conservation district. They knew ahead of time that it was. They knew the zoning restrictions on that when they purchased the land. They have no right now to come in and change the game. This is an industrial use. This levy court currently has pending litigation over the same exact issue that we're facing here again tonight. I feel like it would be an erroneous error for you to again vote to put something like this through to the levy court, knowing the problems that we're having within Kent County, knowing full well the issues that we're having within the agricultural conservation area. I can't believe this application even went through. I can't believe they're willing to take the risk knowing that there's a lawsuit pending currently for the exact same situation. Someone has got to wait until they define whether utility scale solar is an industrial use, because no one believes it's a public utility. It's a money-making operation. It does not belong in the agricultural conservation district. It does not belong on agricultural residential land. It's that simple. I'm not going to go into all the PFAs and all the other things that everybody else has covered. This is a land use situation. That's what levy court is here for, is for land use. It is within the agricultural conservation district. There are those of us that have owned land in our families and personally for years that this county came in on top of and declared it an agricultural conservation area and took our land rights away. They took those from us, limited our land rights by declaring it an ag conservation area. These people bought in after that was done. They knew what they were buying when they bought it, and this is not an allowable use. There will be no houses there. There will not be cars there. It's not allowable. It won't happen. The only thing that's going to happen with this is this utility scale solar, and the only way that that's going to happen is if you allow it. That's it. If you have any
Thank you,
questions.
Mrs. Nash. It's always a pleasure to see you at the mic because we know you'll have something very good to tell us. So
Okay.
I'm going to open it up to the commissioners before you
Okay.
leave, though. Is any commissioner either on the phone or up here have anything they'd like to question this young lady about? Once again, thank you very much. Please come give us your name and address. You can do right there if you want to. You need the exercise. You better go over there. I don't know.
That's just wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's just
Give us your
wrong.
name and address and be sworn or affirmed.
Paul Cartanza Sr., 6289 Bayside Drive, Dover, Delaware.
Mr. Cartanza, do you swear or affirm, sir, to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
That's all I can give you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. These projects keep coming in on us. We're trying to stop them. We're not against solar. We're against solar in the farming community. Anything that's tillable is farming. Anything else, we really don't care where they put the solar. There's brownfields, the state has farms, the state has big woods. They could go in and clear out a 50 or 100 acre spot in the middle of a woods and put these solar farms in. There's no reason that you have to take agricultural land. God only give us so much dirt. We're not going to get any more dirt. We're going to lose the dirt. Between the housing, between solar, Kent County was not, this has just been a total mess since it started. You know, it sneaks in on us, and then we've tried to argue our points, discuss our points, get things changed in ordinances, and then we come to find out some of the ordinances were rewritten after we have discussed what we wanted. They've been changed. All you have to do is change a word, and you can make things flip. And I'm just really saddened that we've had so many meetings with different commissioners trying to make people understand that we're a farming community. Farming is my livelihood. I've been a farmer since I was 5 years old on the back of a potato planter. I've grown up in the dirt. I've eaten the dirt. I run the grain elevator for 33 years. I've watched many farmers come in and farmers go out. They die. The bigger farmers get bigger. But we're only trying to feed the world. We feed who we can feed. Just like Brandon said about the chickens. You know, that's a big commodity. Chickens come out of lower Delaware like crazy. We have to feed them. If we lose that industry, or they lose us, then they're going to go someplace else. You talk about trying to create jobs. Well, if you keep taking the land that produces product for the chickens, for the other industries, then the industries are going to close up and move somewhere else. We have to get a handle on this. We need to stop the solar. They're only out there because our land is cheap. A farmer's an acre of land is $6,000 to $7,000. They're willing to pay more than that on rent, $2,000 an acre for 25 years. Well, that's good money. I mean, like I said, if you really want to see solar or you want to see housing, take all the rules, all the handcuffs that were put on us when Route 1 went through. We'll let it all just free fly. We'll all be rich. I mean, it's just that simple. You can't have one person or two people. We all have our rights to sell our land, but you handcuffed us when Route 1 went through. We can't do it, but yet we can put a farm out of somewhere and say, we're going to put solar here. That's not a good idea. That gives you the haves and the have-nots. We don't want to fight against our neighbors. We're here all to just do what we can do to produce and take care of the soil that God has given us. We have to take care of that. We can't cover it up. We can't put solar in. Put solar where it's in the industrial area. Put it on the Dover Downs parking lot. You know, places where it's already impervious, where there's no water going to go through. Put it where it's not going to change anything. You put it out there where we're at, it's going to change. Change our scenery, change the way of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cartans. Is there anybody up here has any questions or on the phone for this gentleman? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here that'd like to speak against this particular project? Please come to the mic. Give us your name and address, and you could be sworn or affirmed.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Blessing, 2725 Sugar Stick Road, Harrington, Delaware, 19952.
Ms. Blessing, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening. My family, my mother, Joanne Lassard, owned the property at Kogel's Corner. We have 3 corners right there across from the solar panels. My son and my daughter and I, we actually tilled the farm. We've tilled it since my father's passing in 1986. We are a 3rd generation family farm. My grandparents bought that piece of property. It was 120 acres in 1948. As you can see, at the end, we're right across from Hilldale, and then across Route 9 on each side of Savannah Road. So we have those acres there. My son and I, we also till the Shandell Airport, the Wicks Farm, just north of that. We are ag, and like everybody said, they're not making any more dirt. And when this productive farmland goes to solar panels to glass, 25 years, what's that going to do to that ground? How many other farmers, like they said, are you going to lose? Because that is a very lucrative offer. We can't compete with that kind of rent that they are offering for the ground for 25 years. We want to farm. We want to maintain our farming. My husband, he passed away 16 years ago. But my son and I, he was only 21. And, excuse me, we decided to carry on. And it was a struggle. It's been a struggle, but we have maintained. And right now we're tilling about 4,000 acres up and down Kent County and Sussex County. We enjoy farming. We enjoy the people we work with, and we just enjoy nature. And when you put solar panels in the middle of all that beautiful country up there, I mean, it's called Scenic Route 9. What's it going to be called when you put all these glass panels up and down Route 9? I just wanted to let you know I do oppose it. I don't think it's a good thing for our area, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Blessing. Does anybody up here or on the phone have any questions for this young lady? Seeing none, once again, I thank you very much. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak against this particular project? Come to the microphone, give us your name and address, and you can be sworn or affirmed.
My name's Ronald Burden. I live at 1087 Hay Point Landing Road, Smyrna, Delaware. I own property at the corner of White Oak Road and Route 9. There's already a solar panel.
Excuse me.
Pardon?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
There's already a solar panel farm down on the Garrison farm. It's been there. I don't see why they need to put another one right there on the old Harmon farm. And I was born not far from there. And the lady just spoke. I knew her parents real well, and I don't see, I'm totally against solar farms. So that's all I got to say.
I thank you, sir. And does anyone here have any questions for this gentleman? We're on the phone. Seeing none, I thank you once again. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak against this project? Please give us your name and be sworn or affirmed.
I'm Justin Hoffman. I live at 712 Tufts Road, Smyrna, Delaware, 19977.
Mr. Hoffman, do you swear or affirm, sir, to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
First off, I just want to mention that Route 9 has been dedicated National Scenic Byway. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. This does not fit in with that scope of National Scenic Byway. Secondly, I own Shondell Airport. I have a small business providing crop protection services to farmers. Real small business, I'm talking 7 employees. But this is my livelihood, farming, and I just want to be on record that I'm not opposed to solar panels. I think renewable energy sources are a good thing. They should not compete with our food source. They should not compete with our farmland, okay? I'm all about putting on top buildings, canopies, you name it. There's private sector money here. We need to put restriction on the farmland. And the private sector can figure out how to fund the canopies and support the other means of solar panels that does not eat up our farmland. So with that said, if this continues, I'll be out of a job. I mean, farmland is, farming and not necessarily farming, but taking care of the farmer's crops. That's my livelihood. That's my business. And this site does not fit conservation, ag conservation. I haven't been educated yet on the site itself, so I don't know if there's any obstacles, obstructions, if there's anything that would cause a hazard to aircraft and the flight path. I don't know. I just spoke with a James Klikovich yesterday. Have not been able to get a set of plans yet, so I don't know if there's any objections from a structural standpoint yet. That's to be determined. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. I'll ask the commissioners. Anybody have any questions for this gentleman? We're on the phone. Seeing none, once again, I thank you for taking your time.
Appreciate your time.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak against this project? That's the last call. We will now be taking this project up next week. And that concludes this project for tonight. Thank you all for attending. Our next ordinance and application is LC 22-03. Application and name CZ 22-02 Pearson's Corner Farm LLC. Applicant owner is Pearson's Corner Farm LLC, 5268 Forest Avenue, Dover, Delaware 19904. Additional contact is Philip McGinnis, 555 East Lockerman Street, Dover, Delaware 19901. Present zoning, comprehensive plan map designation is AR, agricultural residential, and BG, business general. Low density residential and highway commercial. Proposed zoning, comp plan map designation is BG, business general, highway commercial. Relation to the growth zone outside, Levy Court District, the 6th, Mr. Howell. School district is Capital. Fire district is Hartley, Station 51. Area and location is 5.02 plus or minus acres. Area of petition is 4.90 plus or minus acres. Located on the south side of Forest Avenue, approximately 77 feet east of Pearson's Corner Road, and located on the east side of Pearson's Corner Road, approximately 224 feet south of Pearson's Corner Road west of Dover. Is there someone here to represent this application? Sir, come to the microphone and welcome back. It's always good to see you. Give us your name and address and you can be sworn in from me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Philip McGinnis Commercial Real Estate Company, and I represent the owners of the Pearson's Corner Farm.
Address, Mr. McGinnis.
555 East Lockerman Street, Dover, 19901.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is just, obviously the application is up there. The owner of the farm owns another 70 or 80 acres behind it. The whole point is to cut off a small piece to sell to retire debt. Farmer is debt-ridden, and he was telling me stories the other day about buying fertilizers last year for $38,000. It's $118,000 this year, and can't get it, and the whole work. So this area is obviously commercial, industrial, and moving that way. We have a staff recommendation, a comprehensive plan recommendation. It's already partly zoned, as you can see. So we think everything fits right in with rules and regulations. And I love saying that because that's a relatively recent phenomenon for me.
And it's right opposite Royal Farms, correct?
Royal Farms is
On the
the
west
big
side.
red thing on the same side. Yeah, opposite Pearson's Corner Road.
Very good. I thank you, and I have a question for Mrs. Karcher.
I just want to promise that it's not going to be like a Wawa across the street from a Royal Farms.
The mask.
I said I'm just wondering if it's going to be a Wawa across the street from a Royal Farms.
Yeah, well, as long as their money is American, it's okay with me. It's unlikely, but
If there was sewer there, I'm pretty sure they would be looking at it, but
yeah, and it is a septic system, so it'll be some sort of small retail, but it's unlikely that it'll be.
correct. Is there any other commissioners, either on the phone or up here, that had any questions for Mr. McGinnis? Hi, sir. It's always a pleasure to see you here, and thank you very much for your presentation.
All right. Have a good evening, everybody.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in favor of this project? Third and final call. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in favor of this project? Going against on the other side. Is there anyone here against this project would like to speak? Anyone against this project? Third and final call. Anyone against? If not, we'll be taking this project up. Is there anyone on the phone, Mark? I will ask that.
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to make comments regarding this application, please raise your hand at this time. If you're joining by phone, please press star 3.
They can either say for or against, too.
I see no hands raised online.
Again, sir, appreciate it. We'll take this application up next week. Now for our third and final public hearing application on tonight, not really application, but ordinance. It's LC 22-09, solar moratoriums. An ordinance to amend Kent County Code, Volume 1, Chapter 158, moratoriums, as amended by adding a new subsection relating to the acceptance of conditional use, site plan applications for public utilities, solar installations over 50 acres inside. Sarah, I guess we'll have you talk now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very simply, the ordinance enacts a moratorium on effectively large-scale, anything over 50 acres, solar installations. It's a 3-month moratorium, but it is retroactive to its date of introduction, which would be March 8. It was intended to be a stopgap related to the recent adoption of the new solar ordinance. But it's fairly basic. It's a 3-month moratorium, retroactive to March 8th, and it exempts 50 acres and less.
Does it, being we adopted the other one in Levy Court, actually got that in place, Isn't this basically saying we're putting something in that's already in place? I can ask our attorney. Is it kind of overlapping two things together, Mr. Eliason?
My view is that the ordinance that was passed on the 22nd of March, LC 2209, really is directed largely to uses in AC outside the growth zone. And this pause, if you will, would create some space to consider possible additional options.
So I have one more question, and I'll open it up to Denise here. Is there any particular solar applications that this would affect?
At this point, there are no other utility scale solar applications, at least that have been submitted and accepted. I don't know what else is out in the world.
Okay, Denise, I think, has a question.
I have a question. I mean, since the ordinance did get passed, could I presume, which I guess is not a good thing to do, could I presume that this 3 months gives time for amendments to the ordinance that just got passed?
No, I think it would create some space to possible additional ordinances.
Additional ordinances rather than amendments to the present one?
Well, I mean, I'm not aware of anything in the pipeline at this moment, but I believe that's the objective.
So you're saying that the ordinance that just recently was passed could be stricken and a new one come up?
No,
okay.
I definitely did not say that. I think what I said, and it's probably useful to repeat it, 2209 is largely directed to these types of uses in the AC district outside the growth zone. There are other zoning districts that would accommodate a solar farm or a solar use. And my understanding is that it's those other zoning classifications that might get a look from the standpoint of solar development.
But only for those that are over 50 acres?
Yeah, the pause is for over 50, correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions, either on the phone or up here about this particular ordinance? Seeing none, I'll open it up to the audience. What was that? Excuse me?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Paul.
I have a question. As I understand it, this only applies to the AC property outside of the growth zones, if I understood that correctly. Is that right? Did you hear me?
No, the moratorium is not zoning district specific. What Mr. Eliason called out is that the previously approved ordinance focused largely on AC outside the growth zone. The moratorium is countywide.
Only to AC property?
No, the moratorium would be effective countywide for any installations over 50 acres.
Yeah, my question is, does that apply only to AC countywide on the moratorium, or does it also apply to AR property?
All zoning districts countywide.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
Anyone else on the phone or up here? If not, I'll open it up to the audience. Is there anybody who would like to speak in the audience in favor of this particular ordinance? Remind you, sir, you've already been sworn in, so you can come up and give a brief explanation of why you're for it.
Honestly, I really can't speak
Just
to
give your name first. So
oh, excuse me, John Nichols,
okay, go
Clayton,
ahead.
Delaware. As to be for or against, I've been referring to the Kent County website every day trying to get more information. But frankly, as it's identified here, I can't make heads or tail out of it. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish. I read it, I can read English, but conditional use site plan applications for public utility solar installations over 50 acres in size. Okay, that seems to me that you're getting ready to put in a moratorium for applications over 50 acres in size somewhere. And I'm sorry, but I couldn't
That's
access.
countywide in any zoning district, like Sarah said, and it's going to be through June the 8th.
My point is, I couldn't find that information as just indicated on the website prior to the meeting tonight. I'm not sure that constitutes prior public notice, but it may. I just said I could not find it before this meeting, other than the interpretation that had just been given. So I would ask that before this can be considered to be fleshed out a little bit more, that the public can have an opportunity to comment on it, because right now it's pretty vague. That's my point.
I think it is on the website, Sarah. Would you tell him where to have to go to get to it?
Under public notices, as of this morning, it was not there. Is it there now?
The ordinance should be on with all of the rest of the packet from tonight's meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't find it. But let's talk about these 50-acre projects, shall we? These two are relatively large projects. 50 acres is not an insignificant amount of land. They're going to drive up the cost of property within the zones, the AR and the AC zone. I'll give you an example. And again, I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I don't know enough about it. I need more information. But I looked at a piece of property off Lighthouse Road where the permit was issued to site an industrial solar array. It was 19.3 acres. It was open ground, it was beautiful farmland. And because I was curious, I wanted to know how much the owner was selling it for. 19.3 acres. I'll tell you, I won't ask you to guess because we probably would never get to the final price. It's $1.3 million for 19.3 acres in an agricultural area. Now, farmers can't pay that kind of money. It's impossible. That price was set for these smaller solar arrays that Kent County plans to permit. They're going to sacrifice already up to 800 acres in the AC zone, and it is a sacrifice. To the points that were raised earlier, this can't continue. You will put the farmers out of business. These solar purveyors, I've only seen one project.
Sir, I'd like to remind you that this particular ordinance is putting a moratorium, a stop on everything. So we're not here to discuss whether it's good or bad, but whether you support or don't support the ordinance.
Well, you've asked me if I was supporting it. I approached prematurely, so let me just say in advance that as it stands right now, I can't tell you whether I support it or I don't support it.
Okay, it's very simple. It's a moratorium on any solar 50 acres or greater in any zoning district throughout the county through, correct me if I'm wrong, June the 8th?
Under 50 acres would be covered under the ordinances currently constructed.
The ordinance that went through us and Levy Court last month and was adopted, right. That is already covered under a lot of things.
That was under the AC, not the AR. This applies to the AR and the AC both.
This applies to all zoning districts in the county.
But the under 50 projects, the 4 megawatt projects with no more than 50 acres are currently covered under the ordinances that were adopted.
That were adopted last month. Correct. That you heard presented with the 11 amendments.
This, however, would not apply to solar installations under 50 acres outside of the AC zone. They would still be allowed to go forward as I read this. Is that correct? All right.
Correct. But that's a different zoning ordinance.
Pardon?
That's a different ordinance. This ordinance here is for anything above 50, and I won't say that anymore. Anything
well, in that
50,
regard, now that I better understand it, thank you for clarifying. I'll say I support it as is, but I would like to have an opportunity to comment on my lack of support for the solar installations under 50 acres when that time comes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here support this ordinance, would like to speak?
Just state your name for the record.
Tricia Hurd Nash. So I'd like to say I'm in support of the ordinance. I'm in support of anything that sort of pumps the brakes right now in Kent County and gives us time to get a good plan in place. I am not anti-solar. I am not anti-renewable energy. I think there are responsible ways to do this. I think canopies, estate buildings. I think land that is unusable for other purposes is a great place for this. I was wondering if I would be granted the privilege of asking Sarah a question about
Sure, go ahead. That's what we're here for.
Sarah, the moratorium that originally went through, was the 50 acres in that original moratorium that we saw?
The one that was, this is what was introduced.
It was in that original, because I'm asking because I went back to try to find it. It's not in tonight's packet of information. The moratorium I printed out the packet, it's not there. I as well couldn't find it. Now, I do have a prior copy at home, but I didn't pull it for this meeting, to be perfectly honest, so I just wanted to make sure that was in there.
This is what was introduced. It can't go to hearing if it's not introduced.
Okay.
This is what went.
And I'm in support of the moratorium. I wanted to get that clarified. I appreciate Sarah clarifying that information.
Thank you. Once again, I thank you for coming to the mic. Is anyone else here for this particular ordinance would like to speak? That was the third and final call. Going against, is there anyone here that's against this moratorium and would like to speak on this ordinance? Anyone else here against this ordinance? Sir, you've already had your time at the mic, unless you're against the ordinance.
As pertaining to a part of it. I'm sorry. I don't want to argue.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for understanding. Third and final call against. Is there anyone else here that's against this ordinance and would like to speak? If not, we'll be taking this ordinance up next week at our meeting. Now, this is for against. This isn't for.
Under.
Sir, you got to give your name. You've already been sworn. You have to give your name.
Sorry, well, you started talking while I was walking down, so I was just answering your question. My name's Brandon Bonk.
Okay, and your question?
I don't have a question. I said I'm against it because it doesn't do enough. I think it should do more. I think we need to stop the 50-acre and smaller ones as well until we can get a handle on how to handle this stuff throughout the county. That's why I'm against it. Is that fair?
We appreciate your. Sorry, I talked to you first. My fault. Thank you, sir. Seeing no one else, we will be taking this ordinance up next week at our business meeting. Thank you all for attending. Going down to public comment. Does anyone here from the public have anything else to add? Seeing none, I'll go down to commissioner comments. I will say that I attended the levy court meeting on the ordinance that we did put the 11 amendments in. And for the record, it was pretty much supported by everybody that came to the mic, and I'm certainly glad the levy court passed it as we had presented it. And Sarah, great job on putting it together, and staff and everything that was said there. Any other commissioners on the phone or here have any comment?
I have a comment, I guess, or perhaps a question for Sarah. Are you there?
We're here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. When the planning department and the commissioners are working on this new ordinance, whatever it may be, are you putting together like a task force of farmers and people like that is to work with the county? 'Cause I think we need the input. I think we need a lot of input from the farmers themselves. And I think we need to get some input once and for all from the Department of Ag. They've remained mute about this whole issue. And the Department of Ag is responsible is to protect our farmland, such as the Ag Land Preservation Program. And I haven't heard one peep from the Department of Agriculture in the state of Delaware, either yes or no or whatever the case may be. I think it's about time that they come forward, because there's a lot of concerns about this, and I would just hope that, I know before many ordinances have had a committee, a working committee of people that's drastically affected by it. And my recommendation, Sarah, would be that in this case here, this is a big issue for our county, and it's a bigger issue for the farmers. So I hope we don't leave them completely out. I think they need to be working with the county as far as any future ordinances that may come up on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Anybody else have any comments? I think Mr. Griffey's got a question of you, sir.
Sarah, on the Calpine site, So one of the questions that was brought up tonight, and it might already be included in the ordinances, but I just am not familiar with it, having to do with do we require MSDS on the panels themselves? Or do we have any kind of limitations on the PFASs that in terms of the selection of what they choose to put on that site? I know we're doing ground testing, so I know we'll pick up anything that leaches off, but I'm just wondering on the front end of it, if we have any kind of knowledge as to actually what's being used.
We don't know. That hasn't been part of the discussion, but I would suggest, based on the testimony they gave tonight, they'd be open to a condition that they not use panels that include PFAS.
I would love to see that in there.
I made a note of it. They sound as though they'd be open to it, so I would suggest it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or other business to be brought? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman? Yes. Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Servan? Mr. Servan? Mr. Godfrey?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes,
Mr. Jester?
Yes, and see you all next week.